Thanks so much for joining me for yet another video of Who is Tasha Jackson? Today, I'm going to be talking about how did I come to study astronomy and physics? So, as you recall in the last video, I had told you that I am an aqua sun. And so, having an aqua sun, we're always in a search of knowledge. And in search of knowledge in order to share with others. So, and it's anything, everything, always, all the time. I'm always learning. I'm always looking for opportunities to learn or new things to learn about to share with other people. And, and so, again, all of these stories go way back to childhood, right? All of the everything goes back to when you're a child, if you think about it. And so who you become today is shaped by who you were whenever you were a kid. Keep that in mind. And so, let's take it way back. So again, as a child growing up in the country, seeing the stars and wondering what they are and, what are these things? And so as I learned how to read, I would get books about space and stars and the earth. And, I started studying more and more. And then I wanted to know, well, how does the universe work? Why does the universe work the way that it does? And so I started asking myself, again, this is that Sagittarius moon in me, looking at all of these these perceptions or changing your perception about the way that you live, seeking knowledge, that adventure of life, thinking about, all of these different ways of being and why are we who we are and how do we get here, and all of those kinds of questions that people ask themselves but don't necessarily really work to find the answer. And so that very inquisitive, very knowledge seeking, Sagittarius moon supported by the aqua sun, the drive to actually go and get the knowledge, is how I really got started on my physics and astronomy journey. And so as a kid, I loved looking at the stars. I loved learning about the constellations and their stories, and being able to identify the stars in the sky, being able to identify the constellations, wondering what more was out there. And so, as I was growing up, that was something that I don't think that ever waned, right? Ever, 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 ever. And so, as I was, thinking about, well, what is it that I'm going to do with my life? As I was graduating from high school, of course, I wanted to become an astrophysicist. And so I enrolled in a Bachelor of Science program at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, where I studied under Dr. Bruce Wilking and Dr. Richard Schwartz. And I started out my my formal education instead of my self-taught education in studying physics and astronomy. And so one of the really fantastic opportunities that I was able to have and that I want to share with all of you today, and I do have to say that this is the first time that I'm sharing this really publicly. So I'm kind of a little bit nervous about it. I know I shouldn't be nervous, but I am, because it's not something that I have really told people. Yeah, it's not like, I go to dinner parties and, and I divulge the information. I don't do that. It's just kind of like one of those things that are for myself, but I'm here to share all of that with you today. And so one of the fantastic opportunities that I was able to have whenever I was studying that degree for just 2 years, and I'll talk about why I had ended that later. But one of the opportunities that I had was I actually had an internship that was paid for through NASA, where I did research that actually contributed to the Hubble constant. Now, I do still study physics and astronomy, and I am subscribed to PBS Spacetime, and Anton Petrov, I think is how his name is pronounced, and some other physicsy kind of sciencey channels that I really love to watch because I'm just a huge nerd for it all. And we're starting to understand more and more about the universe that we didn't know before because of the James Webb Telescope. And so it's really been interesting because the research that I did, I studied this quasar that was 14 billion light years away. And I studied it over, I did the research over a few observing seasons to see its variability. So variability is how does it change over time, and does it change over time? And so my research contributed to understanding the Hubble constant. Now, the Hubble constant is the rate with which the universe expands, the observable universe, which we're finding that the Hubble constant is, there's more to it than that. With all of the latest physics research that's been coming out lately. And so I want to present to you very special. Now, I do have to say this, okay? So here is my actual published paper. Now, so Neil deGrasse Tyson, if you see this video, I do not know if this is really your signature because my ex-husband, who used to work at Canyon Ranch, he said that you visited and got your signature. So I don't know if this is true or not, but if it is, can I still have my free tickets to Hayden Planetarium, please? So supposedly, allegedly, he signed this, but I cannot confirm that based off this, but there's his possible maybe signature. And so here is the paper that I wrote. There it is right there. I don't know if it's backwards for you, but there it is. And so, so for that 2 years, I was basically living my dream because, where I'm from, you don't grow up and become a physicist. You grow up and you work in a department store. And so for me, it was a really big deal, which I'll talk about in a separate video about breaking all of your societal limitations. Let's just put it like that. So whenever I had announced to my friends and family that I was going to pursue a degree in astrophysics, of course, I was crazy and what was I thinking and blah, 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 but at that time, I really not only wanted to understand the nature of the universe and how the universe worked, but I was also on this spiritual journey, as I spoke about before, in order to find God. And so there's this really great book called Signpost to God, in which this physicist actually uses physics to prove the existence of God. So, which was the camp that I was in. I was trying to use physics to prove the existence of God in order to understand God. How can I get to know God, or how can I understand God? And the way that the answer that I received was to study the world around me and see, like, how does God work, right? So how does God show up, right? Why does the sun come up every day and all of that, right? How does that all work? So that's really what got me started, really to pursue that as a degree. Now, I also was on this like knowledge kick. Like I wanted to just learn all of these things and learn all of these things. And it was kind of like, once I had reached that goal, so like once I wrote this paper and I did my presentation at the University of Missouri-Rolla in front of all of these other people, and I was the only brown-skinned female that was in the room. Here it was in 2003, and so whenever I had finished that, it was just kind of like, okay, well, I'm at the top of this mountain peak, and what now? And I really was faced with this dilemma of, I reached a goal, and now what do I do, right? And this is really what I want, because I thought, I wanted to become an academic, and I wanted to write books, and I wanted to be on the Discovery Channel, and some of my most favorite famous physicists like Neil Tyson, right? Like I wanted to do all of those things, and I wanted to be this really prominent female figure in that space, because at that time it was incredibly dominated by men. And so that's really where I was. But at the same time, I was like, well, but how is that contributing to society at large? How am I helping people? If I make amazing discoveries, how does that benefit people if they don't really know about it, or if they don't really find out about it, right? Especially during these times, like, um, how many exoplanets have been found? Do you know the answer to that question? No. Unless you study it, or unless you're following, you're not in the know. And so for me, I really changed over from this pursuit of knowledge that I was kind of hell-bent on, into a place of, how do I make a positive impact on society? And so with that, I changed my major to anthropology, because learning about people and societies and culture was something that I was drawn to. And little did I know that that's what I would be doing in my teaching career. This is the way that life works, right? And so I had changed my major, and I graduated with a degree, Bachelor's of Arts in Anthropology, with a really strong emphasis on cultural anthropology and biological anthropology. And so when I had graduated, my love and my passion for physics and astronomy never waned, ever. And, even now I teach my kids. So my kids, they can identify some of the constellations, they know about the planets and some of their features. They ask questions about the universe. They, of course, have the internet, whereas I think the internet was just really becoming mainstream whenever I was in college. So the very beginning of me, turning 18, 19 years old. And, it's just something that every single night, whenever I go outside, I look up and I see. Now, at this point in my life, because I'm so heavily engrossed in astrology, it's even more important that I understand what's going on with the planetary alignments and where we are at in the galaxy, and those kinds of things. Because of course, again, there's a very blurry line in between metaphysics and the physical. And so again, that's a course that I will have. The second course. So the first course is the Spiritual Warrior Journey. Course 2 is Healing Arts. And so I do talk about in that one that I'm building right now. And then hopefully within, some months, I will be able to launch that, and be on the lookout for that. But I now have found that, there was a point in time whenever prominent scientists were also clergymen. And so, where did that division start to happen, right? Because, men of God also studied physics. Kepler and Galileo studied physics, and they also were priests. So, it's these types of things that you learn about, and you're like, really, what is the line in between the way that the universe operates from a spiritual lens and the way that the physical world operates? And is there really a dividing line in between the two? And from my perception and from my experience, the answer is no. We cannot separate out, miracles and the magic of miracles from physics, because it's the particles that actually drive those magic and miracles in the first place. And so understanding, especially particle physics, if any of you are interested, in quantum physics, there's now the first quantum supercomputer that was created using quantum physics. So if any of you are interested in quantum physics, definitely look at those two. Those two are the ones that are really going to help you to understand our natural world, So particle physics and quantum physics help us to understand our natural world at a much deeper level in order to understand some of these questions that, people have become very detached from, of, why are we here? How did we get here? Those kinds of things. And especially if you're looking to marry together the spirituality of, how does God work? That was one of the questions that I had asked myself, was how does God work? And so again, I was shown that through my physics and astronomy studies. And so thank you so much again for watching yet another one of my videos. If you are looking to reach me, you can go to my website, naturallyinspiredmedia.com. You can reach me through the contact page. And I look forward to having you join me in the next video. Hi. If you like the content that I create, please do make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And check out my website, naturallyinspiredmedia.com, and some of the other videos that I have produced here.